I'm Catherine Arndt, the Chief of the VLGA Connect Studio. Welcome to today's episode, brought to you by the VLGA, your counsellor support network and the national broadcaster on all things local government.
It's TGU time, a special edition for your Easter weekend. Hi, everyone. Welcome to VLGA Connect, the governance update brought to you by Hunt and Hunt Lawyers. My name's Chris Eddy, and with me I have Julie Reid. Hello, Julie.
Hi, Chris. Hi, Tony. Great to be back again. It's
And,
hard to believe it's Easter already.
and Tony Raunic, as you might have guessed from Julie's comments there, from Hunt and Hunt Lawyers, our terrific sponsors. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Chris. Hey, Julie. We say Buona Pasqua, everyone, and hope you have a good week. No conferences this week, so I've been just busy working behind my desk.
Oh, very good. Very good. All right. We're recording this on Maundy Thursday. You knew it was Maundy Thursday, didn't you?
I should know that. I went to Catholic school.
Getting some blank looks the day before Good Friday. I think it's still known as Maundy Thursday in the classics. And we've got some big Thursday news to talk about, Julie and Tony. Sally Capp, the Lord Mayor of Melbourne, perhaps the worst kept secret in local government circles. Certainly lots of speculation in recent months that Sally might not see out her term and would step aside and I guess give Nicholas Reece, the deputy, a chance to step into the role for a few months. That's exactly how it's played out. Sally announcing today that she'll be stepping down in June and not contesting the election in October. Julie, first thoughts?
Yeah, look, I heard that was going to be the case. I think I'm going to miss Sally. I love her enthusiasm and her drive and what she's achieved in that time that she's been at Melbourne. And she reminded us on LinkedIn today about some of the really big ticket projects that she's really been driving, the renewing of the Queen Victoria Market, the Green Line project, which I've been watching with great interest, progressing and winning an award as well already for the design. And then, looking at other incredible sort of programs around supporting accommodation for people experiencing homelessness, which really has rung really dear to me in terms of her contribution to the homelessness issue. And then their ambitious Power Melbourne battery scheme, which is an amazing project as well. So, look, I think she'll walk away feeling really proud of how much she's achieved in that time. She stepped in probably at a pretty difficult time, and she's been through some difficult years as mayor, but what a great legacy. So good on her, and it'll be really interesting to see what happens at the election in terms of who gets the next big gig.
As you say, Julie, she stepped in at a difficult time. She sort of alludes to that need for leadership and stability when she took on the role in 2018. Tony, she certainly put that whole Robert Doyle era, if we can call it that, in the rearview mirror, hasn't she?
Oh, absolutely. 6 years, fair stint in a demanding role, and she's just had this, she's just constantly engaging and positive. I saw her in a lift this week at Melbourne Town Hall on Monday and chatted to her, and she was still, no doubt she was probably aware that this was about to happen, but was still very engaging and celebrating what was happening in the city. And she's just been just a great image for the City of Melbourne in terms of her kind of outgoing persona. And she's really helped, I think, sell the city. And as you allude to, after, a pretty, essentially the previous mayor, resigning in disgrace, and she's picked up from there and certainly turned things around. And she's had a huge impact on the council, and great legacy she leaves after those 6 years.
Here. Of course, we had the pleasure of her company at the VLGA Fast Track Day a few Fridays ago now, where she gave a welcome. And I did put her on the spot about her advice to the mayors and councillors in the room about her tactics, if you like, for leading under those pressured moments. And she was very, very open and forthright about how she's dealt some of those issues over the years. So a great leader, and we wish her the very best. There's lots of media reports around about it. I did miss one little nugget, which was right at the end of the ABC News story, which has confirmed that Darren Hinch has decided to take his hat out of the ring for mayor later. And I'm not sure if either of you had heard that news. Of course, he made a splash a few
No.
months ago when he said he would run. So apparently now he's not running.
Right.
I will
Okay.
miss that you interviewing Darren moment that I was really looking forward to, Chris.
But
We'll
I've
have
got
to
to
find-
say, though, Chris, is that Sally did cause a little bit of controversy online after that event in wearing her Collingwood
Oh, she did.
jersey.
Oh, yes.
And there was mixed emotions and reactions to that Collingwood jersey. So, you know.
Took some of us a while to get over that. I have to admit. No, just joking, of course, and all the very best to Sally Capp. She's still in the role for a little bit until June. Nicholas Rees, the Deputy Lord Mayor, will step in. And of course, there's been speculation that Nicholas has been talking to the business community and lining up support for a run at the Lord Mayor. We don't know what his plans are, but I would assume a few months in the seat will give him a taste for it, and we'll see what he decides to do come October.
Mm.
All right, another bit of news closer to home. The CEO of Golden Plains Shire Council, Eric Brassless, has resigned this week. I haven't seen anything official, but it's been said to me that Eric is going to the City of Wyndham in a director position, and we wish him well with that role. Eric's been around quite a few councils in Victoria now over a few decades, including Greater Shepparton, City of Ballarat,
Gannawarra.
Storrington, Hobson's Bay, Gannawarra. Yes, he was the CEO at Gannawarra prior to going to Golden Plains. I think he was at Bendigo going way back as well. So,
Ballarat,
well knows the sector. A very experienced hand moving into the exec team there at Wyndham. Well done, and all the best to Eric.
And Chris, what I really liked about the announcement on the website, on the Golden Plains website from Councillor Cunningham, was that it was mentioned that Eric's commitment to improving the organisational culture and enhancing staff satisfaction has been evident. And he's marked, sort of annual improvements since his appointment. And so I was really pleased to see that. And he's prioritised in his time their gender equity and affirmative action against sexual harassment, and setting up a set of really strong corporate values ingrained within the organisation. So when I read that, I don't think I was aware that he had such a big impact in that space. And that was really great to see that recognised by the council on their thank you and farewell to Eric.
Yeah, and get down and see the Bannockburn Civic Centre, which is another legacy. And he gave me a tour when I was at Golden Plains last time. Eric took me around a few years ago, and it's a really substantive centre for a municipality that's really growing on that that edges of Geelong, and is really housing I think a dormitory population that's travelling into Melbourne and Geelong for work. So well done, Eric. Another sort of similar stint to Sally's, six years, like Sally Capp.
Yeah. That's in this day and age, that's a pretty good stint, isn't it?
And Chris, there's many vacancies at the CEO level. Are you going to share with us?
Well, you can always check out the page on the local government news website. I keep that up to date, but there are five CEO positions to be determined at the moment. Now, let's see if I can remember them. Hindmarsh, Glenelg, of course, Golden Plains now. Who else have we got? Moyne, yes.
And East
Gippsland. So there you go. So a bit of competition out there. Interesting time in the cycle too to have so many of those vacancies, because I hadn't planned to sort of go here, but Tony, Julie, interested in your thoughts. Those councillor groups have to be obviously thinking about the timing of any decision about appointing a new CEO with elections so close.
Yeah, I'd be starting to contemplate the acting scenario, certainly what are we? We're coming into April, I'd certainly I'd have some level of discomfort appointing a CEO in June with elections in October, say. So I think it's really one of the things on the table would be considering should we potentially leave it to the new group of councillors to make some of these decisions.
Absolutely, that's exactly the conversation that I imagine is being had.
Yeah.
at most, if not all, of those councils. Another bit of appointment news. This is hot off the press just as we started to record this episode. Stephen Kingshott, who we hadn't heard much of for decades, really, former mayor and councillor at Hobsons Bay and in inner Melbourne West, was recently appointed one of the monitors at Glenelg and has now been announced as the new chair of the Local Government Grants Commission for, I think, a 3-year term. And what big shoes to fill. He's, of course, stepping in for John Watson, who stood down very recently after 11 years in the role.
And it is after someone's been in the role for 11 years, they build a lot of skill and a lot of knowledge in that time. So, but, I think in some ways Stephen can maybe bring a slightly different perspective or might bring some different types of experience that will refresh maybe that role. But, we will, and we do miss John Watson, but it'll be interesting to watch Stephen and how things unfold as a result of that.
You know what you can do if you're missing John terribly, don't you? You can go to the local government news roundup. Go to the local government news roundup podcast queue and have a listen to the episode I did with him a month or two back, where we have a trip down memory lane. He described it as a fireside chat with no fire.
I used to get to see him every month at the Northern Health Foundation board meetings. So,
so you're not missing him that much? Is that what you're saying, Tony?
That's right.
Still floating around.
Indeed. All right. So that announcement about Stephen Kingshott's appointment was made by the Minister for Local Government today. Another announcement this week, which sees a bit of a reversal of fortunes in the Geelong region, is the City of Greater Geelong deciding to rejoin the G21 alliance. And of course, we spoke last year about the decision to step out of the alliance in, I think it was April of last year, and to take their advocacy largely in-house. They're back in the fold, but if you read the fine print, with a reduced financial contribution, which recognises the financial challenges that all councils are facing at the moment. Tony?
Yeah, this one caught my eye. I think, 100 members of this alliance, because we have, significant sort of client and family connections down that way. But April 2023, City of Greater Geelong, as you say, did vote not to renew the membership. And that would have been a huge blow, was a huge blow for G21's, both their finances and I think for their political clout, if you like. But as you say, they're back now. There's a new, agreed advocacy framework for going from 2024 to 2027 for City of Greater Geelong, and they're back as the fifth municipality in that group and that alliance. It's over 20 years old. Of course, we've got Surf Coast, Golden Plains, Queenscliff, and Colac Otway also in that organisation as well.
No doubt those councils will be pleased to see Geelong back in the fold as the, clearly the largest council in that alliance. So I think a sensible decision, Julie.
Yeah, I was really pleased to see them co-join again. I was only just down in Geelong the other day and speaking to the staff there and, reflecting on the fact that, that they did break away from the G21 and, that advocacy space. But always good, I think, to see councils working together to support each other and have one voice on, what is affecting, a pretty significant region. So, look, great news. Even if it is a smaller contribution, it doesn't really matter. I think that the fact that they can help support other councils as well, particularly councils like the Borough of Queenscliff that have like 40 staff or something, I mean, we're talking about a small shire that can benefit from having other bigger councils around the table as well.
It gives a clout, doesn't it? And these alliances, they're all fighting to be heard, and it's really important that they, put their best foot forward. Regional Cities Victoria has been very prevalent lately, commentating on issues of importance across the regional cities purview, and of course, Rural Councils Victoria is very active as well. All of these groups are, in a way, competing to be heard, aren't they, at other levels of government? All
Absolutely.
right. So that's Geelong back in the fold at G21. Yes, sorry, Julie.
Chris, sorry, can I just say that Geelong is looking fantastic? Like, I mean, I just think the changes that I've noticed going back there in more recent times, a couple of times, compared to 10 years ago, it's leaps and bounds ahead, and a much more interesting and dynamic place, and particularly at night. Yeah, I was really impressed. I was really impressed with what I saw while I was down there.
Yeah, I like it. I'm a ratepayer down there too, and I definitely see that both the city centre itself, which is clearly transformed. There's a decentralisation of major entities from the City of Melbourne into Geelong, which has been really meaningful. But it's if you haven't sort of spent time recently, just the foreshore there is just something. It's beautiful, that Eastern Beach, isn't it?
It is.
And
that library, Chris, that library is amazing. I just went in and just soaked in the architecture and soaked in the feel of the library, and saw young families in there, engaging with each other, the young kids. And it was just like such a beautiful space. So well done to the council on that fantastic library down there.
Well, there's some nice words for Greater Geelong. I echo all of that, but I'm biased because I live in Greater Geelong. I see this all the time, but I know Ali Wasty is I think, a reasonably regular viewer or listener to the program. I'm sure she's heartened by those comments, and Trent Sullivan, the mayor, I'm sure would be happy to hear that as well. Totally unplanned, those comments from Julie and Tony. Thanks for that. A couple of other stories before we get to a special feature in this special Easter edition of TGU. I noticed that Latrobe City Council has taken a big step towards a concept that's been talked about a lot, but I don't think it's really been demonstrated yet to be effective and making a huge difference, and that's waste to energy I'm talking about. So Latrobe's made a decision to send its municipal waste to a new facility at Maryvale, which is going to be online, I think, in 2028. I read. This is a big step, and of course part of the transition that's going on economically, structurally wise, down there in the Latrobe Valley.
Yeah, and Chris, the councils have been talking about this possibility for a number of years. When I was working at the City of Greater Dandenong, there was talk about this Maryvale paper mill sort of facility. There's been a lot of interest in this space for councils, and it was really good to see that there's been some kind of commitment now to go forward and to look at this from the point of view of sort of supporting this new energy, and from a sustainability point of view, I think it's a great offering for the council. And look, I think it shows sort of support, I think, to a new industry where it's coming in, and there's previously been sort of job losses from other industries that have had to close down or whatever. Yes. So I think it's sort of showing support to local business as well. But I suspect that there's going to be more interest, particularly in that region, to use that kind of facility going forward.
Yeah, well done, Latrobe. And while we're on, I guess, recycling issues, sustainability issues, there's another wicked problem that councils and the EPA are trying to deal with, and that is tyre dumping. A couple of extraordinary stories that you alerted us to, Tony. One in Melbourne's west, where the EPA and the City of Wyndham are trying to find those responsible for dumping something like 1,000 tyres in Tarneit, and an even greater number up in Mildura. That particularly is an extraordinary story.
They were both stories that struck me, Chris and Julie. That firstly, what as Councillor Robert Zitkowski of City Wyndham said, when the federal government put in a ban on exporting waste tyres back in 2021, the cost of recycling has increased, and there's more incentive now, it seems, to dump these tyres illegally. And City of Wyndham spend $1 million a year cleaning up dumped rubbish, at least 500 tyres a month they have to collect. And this story was about a site that's been earmarked for a new shopping centre in Tarneet. The EPA, as you say, have identified at least 1,000 tyres that have been dumped there. And unless the EPA in their investigation can actually identify the dumpers via, CCTV, their car registration, etc., then the cleanup bill goes to the landowner. Now, in this case, it's an entity, a developer that may be able to afford it, but up in Mildura, where this is not confined to the metro area, of course. So up in Mildura, there's a family that's been left with a $1 million cleanup bill, where as you say, over 100,000 old tyres illegally dumped at this rural property. There was some sort of business arrangement that was apparently sort of manipulated by the dumper. The deceased landowner had agreed to receive some tyres on the site, but it seems that, a lot more arrived, clandestinely dumped there, hidden in the mallee scrub, that sort of thing.
And Tony, the deceased landholder was an old lady, wasn't it?
Yes,
Who
yes.
may
So
very
now,
well have been confused about.
correct. And of course, the EPA's got involved, and that family now have a terribly high, exorbitant cleanup bill as a result. So it's an ongoing problem. I think on the other hand, we do see some pretty lateral and exciting ideas for recycling tyres. There's a lot of playground surfaces and other sort of surfaces we see used as a way to recycle this product, but it's still a major problem because when we replace our car tires, you might notice on the account you get charged a little a fee, an itemized fee for the disposal of the tire, and the venue that puts your new tires on and balance and alignment, they have to send those tires away somewhere, and some of the disreputable operators, it seems, are using some of these unlicensed entities who are dumping in the wrong places.
That's particularly that Mildura story. That's just awful, isn't it?
Horrendous.
That family. I think I read they had to sell 2 properties to be able to pay the bill.
We'll have to bring back that fashion of the 70s, Chris. Remember the tread sandals, with the rubber at the bottom.
The swans in the front yard. Remember the swans they'd made?
I only remember my sister used to have them, and so you could build a business from that and create a new fashion accessory or something.
I could use a small number as planters in the garden, but not 100,000.
I think we should get our listeners to come up with ideas as to how we can help these people recycle these tires.
Yes, I'm not sure tire tread sandals is the way to go, but
I thought you might remember those. Damn.
Can't say that I do, Julie. Tony might. He's nodding.
I'm wearing Pirelli, so it's very Italian at the moment.
Yes. One more story, perhaps, before we get to a special feature. This one caught my eye out of Western Australia this week. A councillor at Port Hedland, elected this year in an extraordinary election. In fact, I don't think he's technically a councillor yet. He's yet to be sworn in because he's overseas. Why is he overseas? Well, he's turned up on Russian television this week, congratulating Vladimir Putin on his election and describing, according to the ABC News story, that election victory as the most transparent in the world, which apparently hasn't gone down well with Penny Wong, our foreign minister. Just the mind boggles, doesn't it? Just you never know where the next scratch your head moment in local government's going to come from.
I think he said it was in my lifetime, the world has never seen such a transparent and comprehensive victory as what we saw here over the last few days. And Chris and Julie occurs to me, well, he might well be accurate. I mean, if you kill all your opponents, you probably will have a comprehensive victory. Shouldn't be laughing, should I? But it does seem that someone has really fallen for the hospitality and propaganda.
Yeah, and Chris, the Australian Foreign Minister, as you said, Penny Wong, said that it was an insult to democracy.
Mm.
While the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, said the vote could only be described as undemocratic. So vastly different views to that of Councillor McRae, I think it was.
Adrian
McRae.
McRae,
Yeah.
who flew to Russia as an independent international observer at the invitation of the Russian government.
I haven't asked you, all right, Julie?
No, didn't get my invitation. We'll pop that link. Pop that link in the show notes if you'd like to find out a bit more about that one. A few other stories doing the rounds, but I think we're going to draw a line there, folks, because we've got a special feature coming up to take us out this week. So, Julie, Tony, thank you as always. Tony, you've got to stay put because you're doing this special feature for us, but you've got to work a bit harder for your sins. But have a great Easter break, everyone. I hope you're doing something special with family.
You too, Chris. I'm heading over to Adelaide for a bit of a look of what's going on over there. I love Adelaide. It's a lovely city. So I think they're looking for a new CEO over there in Adelaide at the moment, but not that I'm going there for that reason.
Oh, well, I'm glad you've knocked that
ruled herself out.
You've knocked that rumor on the head before it starts. Yes, you're right. I think Davidson's handling the recruitment there to replace Claire Mockler, who we reported has gone back to the UK to look after her mum. She stepped down in December at the City of Adelaide. Tony, how's Easter looking for you?
Oh, it'll be nice. Just family, and that's what it's about, isn't it? Gather everyone around, and it'll be fun. And then hopefully, Chris and Julie, we have some rain after Easter because it's very dry. It's really dry. My water tanks are both all empty. So
no, you're right. We really, really need some rain. So Tony,
Chris, sorry, I will say my Easter egg basket is quite empty at the moment. So I'm looking forward to receiving your gift of some decadent chocolate for Easter. So
you mean it hasn't arrived?
It hasn't arrived yet. It's
on the way from Belgium. It's Belgian. It's very expensive. Chris has sent it's taking a long time to get out of Brussels. Isn't that right, Chris?
It is. So
porting customs.
Sorry, so I'll need to dash down to Kmart and see if I can pick up some last minute reduced Easter eggs for Julie. All right. So thank you, Julie. You're released and you can go off and enjoy Easter. Thank you. Tony, not quite so. Can you just
I'll learn my lines, my questions. I'm ready to go.
We're about to see an interview that Tony's actually recorded prior to this day. Can you just set the scene for us, Tony, as to what
so Scott Hodges, who joined the show in an episode in about, I think, November of last year, went on a bit of a tour of council facilities around the world, particularly in Europe, and in particular was really struck by a facility in the Netherlands. And we're going to hear about that facility and listen for the concept of, we all know cradle to grave, listen to the concept of cradle to cradle and what that means. Really interesting concept, and perhaps one that local government might pick up in Australia.
All right. There'll be homework on this later. So thank you, Tony. Thank you, Julie. We'll go to the interview with Scott Hodges, and that'll take us out from TGU, and we'll be back with another edition next week. Until then, bye for now.
Well, hi, TGU viewers. Got something exciting for you. We're back with Scott Hodges, who's joined us in the studio today. G'day, Scott.
G'day, Tony. Thanks for having us.
Oh, awesome. Great to have you back. Of course, Scott, you were on a TGU episode in November of last year when you beamed in from Europe to us, but more on that a bit later. Perhaps for viewers who don't know you, Scott, and I know many would, but tell us a little bit about your journey in local government and what you've been doing.
Thanks, Tony. Look, I probably should clarify, first of all, you indicated in the last that I'd been in the sector for over 30 years. I think you forgot to say that I started when I was 8 years old, but, but yeah.
Like all of us.
Yeah. Look, I run HFM, which is a bespoke consultancy that specialises in property contracts, projects, working environments with local government. I've also worked with Zoos Victoria and state government organisations, but yep, I'm very fortunate to have been around the sector for some time and very passionate about seeing it succeed and continue to grow.
Awesome. Now, you were on that trip through, at least we saw you in Europe last year. Tell us a little bit about the trip that you took and why you thought you'd go and visit particular venues.
Yeah, I think the first thing to put out there, and it's the front bar test, is it wasn't just a tax write-off, it was a research trip. I've been really fortunate over the last 10 years to work with a number of organisations in local government and visit sites in all around Australasia and New Zealand that have looked at different working environments, some successful, some not so successful. So I have a passion in that space, and this was as much about looking behind the curtain to myth bust, because I've done work in the last year or so where this $1 million question is, how many days in the office? Who works in the office? Why do they work in the office? And the thing is, in my experience, physically being within a facility, you can tell. Culture has a feel. And I was very fortunate through two supporting relationships, one with Valdoan, who are an international hybrid working consultancy, and the Leesman Group. Now, the Leesman Group are interesting. They've surveyed over 1.8 million workplaces throughout the world based on feedback from employees. So it's a series of criteria, but that creates the opportunity for me to access some of the top 50 hybrid working sites in the world, both private and public.
Awesome. And I know that you were particularly struck by what you saw in Venlo in the Netherlands with the local council and their accommodation arrangements. Do you want to tell viewers a bit about that, Scott?
Yeah, look, I think the one thing here I didn't fly in and fly out to all these visits. I spent a few days pre and post, and that was deliberately to do the hardship posting of a bit of cafe work and a bit of happy hour work. But people will tell you what they think of their local council or the organisation by being there. They don't know you, so they're very open and transparent. So Venlo, to me, is a great example to talk about today because it was the best local government example, holistically, that I saw in my trip. So do you want me to elaborate a little bit more about Venlo?
Yeah, I think we'd love to know, what I guess prompted the local council firstly to look at some renewal there in terms of their accommodation and what path they took and how successful has it been?
Yeah, the reason Venlo is such a fantastic story is this is a 30-year journey. It's not an overnight. And I need to emphasize that is that as humans, we have the ability to take something complex or simple and make it complex. But this type of topic, which is multifaceted, can be overwhelming. So this is almost an intergenerational storyline of a council that was brought together through amalgamation, who 30 years ago realised that unfortunately, due to antisocial behaviour that was occurring within their municipality due to a cafe culture, that they needed to change. And part of that change, the building and the occupation by offices and the services is a small part of that. But originally it was around rezoning. It was around focusing on the future economic viability of the township and the municipality. And that involved creating opportunities for new business. So the Dutch have always been known for horticulture. So they had horticulture, they had education, but they created a technology precinct, which now, all these years forward, they are one of the main locations for a lot of European headquarters. They then looked at how they would attract and retain talent in everything they did, and that was by a commitment for their own investment, as well as attracting investment from others. So the building is a smaller part, almost not at the end of the journey, but in terms of those key components, it's one of the elements that to put it in perspective, this building, if you ask in town, and as I say, bit of happy hour research here, a lot of people would say, oh, that really fancy building sits out there. What this building has done in the way that it operates is attract over 20,000 visitors annually to the town for no other purpose than going through this building. So that's why, as I said prior, to emphasise that for me to get access to this facility and some of the others took over 12 months. And it's very, very finite time. I was really fortunate that I got to spend several hours, in fact, over 3 days within this building. So the model that you see is a hybrid working environment in a state-of-the-art cradle-to-cradle building, and we might come back to that cradle-to-cradle philosophy and procurement, that has a holistic approach that has embraced all facets required for success. And the figures and the stats and the information, I'm sure you'll roll some images in the background of this, plus there's great access to surveys, pre and post audits, etc., online, give you hard data. But I wanted to myth bust to find out what is their key to success and how has it occurred.
And tell us, you mentioned that cradle to cradle concept. What does that mean and how is that playing out in Venlo?
Yeah, cradle to cradle is amazing. We all know cradle to grave. Cradle to cradle, simply put, is about harnessing the value of materials for food or recycling into other products. So the entire building in 2009, when they decided to build the building in Venlo, it is one of the most sustainable facilities I've ever seen, with the cradle to cradle component being that every material has a reuse value. So I didn't know whether this got lost through interpretation originally, but the gentleman I did the tour with said, we just had the demolition contractors come through last week. And I said, well, not to appear rude, but the building looks to be fantastic condition. Why would you be doing that? Well, the reality is every 3 to 4 years, they have the building priced for demolition to find out the net value of the materials within it.
Wow.
And at the moment, if I get this correct, they were several million euros in front.
Wow.
So that is one very significant component. The other one is the procurement philosophies, their fleet philosophies. Procurement in itself, buy or buy back. I don't think we've heard of that in many areas of Australia. But internationally, buy and buy back in Europe is possible, where they have demonstrated over an 18% reduction in procurement costs.
So
recycling pattern.
So just playing that out practically, so a municipality might buy a product and the supplier of that product is obligated to purchase it back after its useful life at the council. Is that how it works?
That is correct. And it's repurposed back into new products, which is cradle to cradle. The interesting thing too is now Venlo as a council have embraced that all of their facilities will be cradle to cradle. And they are now the international headquarters for the Office of Innovation for Cradle to Cradle. So while I was there, adjoining Dusseldorf, which is just down the road, is another area that's embracing the same concept. They've got an amazing building as well. These are, as with everything, everybody doesn't do everything well. So there's things we do, that are very different and we do very well. But holistically, if I was to say, this demonstrates intergenerational decision-making, commitment to leadership, commitment to the journey, trust, and one that sneaks in here is accountability. So the one thing is that employees, they have, for example, their building produces better air quality in the building than outside the building.
Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing. They have reduced their footprint from, I think, 9,000 square metres to under 6.
Wow.
They have over a 95% staff satisfaction rate. Now, these are not just these aren't, shall I say, cryptic questions. They're very direct. And that's something else that I found is the openness and the fact that this is woven into their DNA. It is not a bolt-on process. This is how they roll. And their authenticity and the expectation on both sides. This is a relationship between an employer and an employee to provide better service to their customer. And even in the way their buildings are designed is, and I know we've talked about this before, in the way that they're configured, and I won't get into the specifics here, but I'm happy to with others at another time. are about empowering their customers.
Wow, so much, I guess, for municipalities in Victoria and other places in Australia to take away from those experiences that you've had, Scott. Tell us, what would you say are some of the key learnings for people in local government over here in Australia from the experience in Europe?
Well, the first thing of the myth busting is the fundamentals haven't changed. They have not changed. And in terms of what you seek to achieve, this is, for example, we look at businesses and say, well, in New York at the moment, retail space or office space is at its lowest occupancy it has been for many, many years. The simple reason being, small to medium businesses can say, right, we can have a fully detached model. Whereas larger businesses, or someone that I would relate to local government in Victoria, they still need a business. But the lessons are, make the space as functional and operational as possible. I go through a lot of buildings, as I'm sure you do. I'm not saying this, but this is both public and private. And I see so much space that's sitting there where you're paying for the air conditioning, the heating, etc. There's two things to that. There's an operational cost, but there's also a cultural element. You want to build a comfortable tension in the way that people work, they collaborate, they innovate, and no places to go and hide. Now, we do know we need breakout space and quiet time and all these other different aspects, but it's about finding that balance. And the thing I see is it's not about the building. It doesn't need to be, and an example would be, one of the best in the world is in the Congo in Africa, and it's not a fancy building, but the culture's off the charts. So the thing is, it's not about the fancy green chairs and, the big buildings, which is where we can become overwhelmed with the concept, because the philosophy is misunderstood and misinterpreted, which damages it as a brand. So the messages are leadership, culture, collaboration, intergenerational decisions. But for example, we have the opportunity to service share. So if we're looking at undertaking the research to understand if this is a viable concept, it doesn't need to be one council on its own. Some have already done it. You've got Cardinia, Glen Ira have looked at it, Maribyrnong, Casey, another one that's groundbreaking in this space. So we've got to think about, it's as adaptable to a smaller rural municipality as it is in a Melbourne. And this is about how we work into the future.
Awesome. Well, Scott, I know that we could talk about this for hours.
Yeah,
we might have to devote a whole episode to one of these issues around accommodation arrangements for council staff. But you yourself are available to interested council officers, CEOs, etc., with your learnings. And I know what we'll do, folks, is we'll put in the show notes some contact details for Scott, and I'm sure Scott would be delighted to inform people in the sector a bit more about his experiences, and he has a lot of information to impart here, which will be really valuable for us here in Victoria.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. As you said, it gets dark at 6. We could go all day on this, but I'm very interested to talk to anyone. I'm also a guest lecturer at RMIT and looking to foster culture and people in local government. So there's an integration point there as well. So, yeah, happy to talk to anybody who's happy to listen.